Now, most coaches will show you their before and afters, and then they'll sit there and leave you wondering, well, how do you get your clients that result? Like, what are the steps? Well, that's exactly what I'm gonna show you in this video. I'm gonna show you the exact steps, every phase, every decision, and the system that I use with every single one of my clients. So that way they get results. So let's dive on in. Now, starting at the top, before we do anything, I need to know where we actually are. Not where you think you are, where we actually are. So when we take our measurements, our photos, and our weigh-ins, yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of a reality check. It's not really a fun step because a lot of times when we're kind of going through our day-to-day and we're just kind of living with ourselves every single day, we see ourselves all the time. So we don't start noticing more and more and more of the things that start changing, to where as soon as we do this, yeah, it cannot be a fun step, but that also allows us to get really good insight into where we are. Then this is the cool part. Yeah, we get a baseline for where we start, but then when my clients look back from where they started to where they are after they achieve their results, their mind's blown. So yes, it is really important because yeah, most people never actually look at themselves real objectively, but this data becomes before anything that we do, and every decision we make moving forward is going to be tracked against it. Then the next part with this is our caloric output. So next I need to know how much your body's actually burning, not what your Fitness Pal says or your Fitbit or whatever. We need a real number here based on your actual job, your activity, your actual life. And a lot of the people I talk to, you know what, they are eating closer to maintenance than they realize, and it's exactly why nothing is moving. Where a lot of times as soon as we get our clients to start tracking food, they lose weight right away because just that tracking or following a meal plan gets them to actually start eating a little bit less, because it's super easy to underestimate the amount of food that you're actually eating. So that's why when we actually do this, we need to make sure that we have a good understanding. Now, there are some people, yes, who are in a deficit for a long period of time and their metabolism has adapted and their body's down regular, hormones are everywhere, and they're not seeing progress anymore. But that is giving us really good information as to what's going on. Then once we know what the output is, now we can do the input. So now we need to know how much you're actually eating, not what you think you eat, what you actually eat. Now, most people underestimate what they are eating, and when we sit down and take a look together, that gap between where they are versus where they need to be, it's a lot bigger than a lot of times they think. And what actually happens is when we don't understand how much we're really putting in, like I said, it's really easy to underestimate how much you're really eating, and you can be blowing the top off your calories. Very, very simple. So then after we have a good understanding of what the caloric intake is, that's where we now set the goals. Okay, so like, what do you actually want? Not just to lose weight, but what is it that you feel is going to get better in your life when you achieve that goal? Is it being able to run around with your kids and not run out of energy and be able to outrun them? Is it being able to show up at work as your best self and demand respect and have that confidence as soon as you walk into a room? Or is it just so that way you feel comfortable in your body and your clothes, so you don't have to like change an outfit 3, 4, 5 times a day to hide yourself, just so you feel comfortable going outside? These are the things that we need to understand, because once we understand that version of yourself that you see, that's where we can now put that plan together to actually get there. We can then see how aggressive we can be with it, or sometimes you have to ease our way into it and just can't dive right on in. So again, everyone is going to be different here. Then once we've set that goal, now we can do the lifestyle audit. Now the stress, the sleep, your job, your actual social life, your schedule, availability, all these things matter. Because again, if you have poor sleep, your hunger hormones are everywhere, your cortisol is up, you don't have a good ability to recover, all those things are going to work directly against fat loss. And then the other part with it is that when we put our plans together, I don't have any cookie cutter programs. I don't do a one size fits all. So that's why I need to understand what is our circumstance. Because if I give someone a program and they can only work out 4 times a week, and I give them something that's 5 or 6 times a week, automatically right away, they're not able to do all the workouts. Psychologically, they think they're falling behind because they're missing workouts and they're not getting the best, and doesn't work out well that way. So that's why I don't do any cookie cutter programs or one size fits all. Everything is customly built for each person, their goals, their circumstances, situations, schedules, all these things are taken into consideration. So once we now do that, now we can get our clients started, okay? So this is where once I have all that information, now we can lock in that start date where we now hop on a call together, we go through the game plan, the workouts, the nutrition, all the stuff, so that way they can hit the ground running and there is no guesswork, because in this moment, you stop being someone who's thinking about change and you're someone who's actually doing it. So we set the expectation right here, and it's the 6-month process, not 6 weeks, because again, anything worth building, it does take time. And that's where honestly, most program ends and ours just begin. So now that we're inside of this, these are going to be the phases that we go through, whatever order or whatever steps we got to take. There's going to be certain things that we got to do, but I'll take you through the different phases. So the first one is the reset. Now this is where I start absolutely everyone. This is the one that most coaches actually skip entirely because clients don't want to hear about it. And I completely understand. Yeah, they want to lose weight, go into deficit right away. You want to appease your clients. That's the thing, is I'm not here just to appease people. I'm here to get results, and results that last. So we're going to do things correctly. We're going to do things the right way. So that way we get results that actually stay for good. So when we go in here, this is where now we're really focusing on rebuilding the metabolism, getting it back to functioning. Because if your metabolism has already been damaged from years of yo-yo dieting or always putting yourself into a deeper deficit, it makes it worse if we go into another deficit. So no, we're not going to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. That's insanity. We're going to do it differently so we can reset the metabolism, put the body into a position so it's actually going to respond. So that way, when we now go into the next phase, which is going to be our build, this is where we can focus now on building muscle mass while also reducing body fat. No, not a bulk. We don't do the cut and bulk here. We make sure that we get the metabolism up, the body ready to respond. Then we're putting on muscle mass. So that way we can now lose body fat simultaneously as muscle mass goes up, which now puts us in a perfect position. So that way your body will actually respond when we do the cut, and you'll actually have something beneath to show the lines and the muscle definition when you actually get leaner. So that's the whole point. We want to make sure that we have a good solid base, because muscle is essentially the engine for your metabolism. The more you have, the more you burn at rest. The more you burn when you're moving around, the more you burn when you're just living your life. So we spend this phase deliberately building lean tissue, so that way when we cut, you're losing body fat and that's it. And then you also have something to show underneath, and that's where now the cut starts coming in place. So that way we can now start seeing accelerated body fat loss. So now we're shedding off that last little body fat. Now that the metabolism's healthy, the muscle mass base is there, your body is primed, and this is where clients start seeing those life-changing results, and they start having, well, sometimes they have to buy new clothes for their closet, but hey, worst problems to have. But at the end of the day, this is what we want. Now, for some clients, before we get into the sustain, sometimes we got to go through a couple different cycles with this, and we have to go back between a cut, go back into a reset, a build, a cut, and we might have to do that 2 or 3 or 4 times, depending on how much weight we have to lose or how big the goals actually are. Then once we get to that point, there's going to be one of 2 things that happen before we go into sustain. So this is where me and my clients will have a discussion with each other. So that way, one of 2 things happen. When we achieve the results, they either sit there and then they move the goalpost on me and they say, Corey, this is what I want to accomplish now that I've accomplished my results. And then we create a new game plan to achieve that. Or they'll say, you know what, Corey, this is the best I've ever felt. I love how my body looks, love the way I feel. I'm ready to take this on for my own. So that way we now start working on getting them ready to take this on for their own by making sure they're set, they're ready to go. I have all their workouts, their nutritional protocols, what works for their body, what doesn't, and I put it inside of a lifestyle maintenance plan so that way they can actually sustain it. And this is where nobody else does this, because I understand, yeah, I get you coaches want to keep your clients in your program as long as you can and keep them in there forever. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to keep my clients forever. I don't want to keep them longer than I have to. I want to get them the results, teach them how to keep it, and let them go and live their lives and not need someone like me ever again. So a little different on that one, but at the end of the day, this is where we make sure that we are keeping them in a position where they can keep their results. So you know the whole phrase, give someone a fish to eat for a day, teach them how to fish to eat for life. This is where we're teaching them how to fish. So these are the phases that we go through. That's the whole point with metabolic sequencing. This is a 4-phased approach in the right order and is driven entirely by nutritional data, not generic plans, not vibes, not feels. Your plan is built around where your body actually is right now, because you cannot diet your way out of a damaged metabolism. You can't outwork a shitty diet. And that's the trap most people are stuck in right now, whether they know it or not. So that's what it's super important. Now that we're inside, this is this kind of smaller, fine details. So that way we can make sure that they keep going. So when we first really get rolling, they're going to have their macros set up. Now, some of my clients are on meal plans where then I do have to take a little bit of time to teach them how to do macros, track it properly and stuff like that. But for the most part, just for sake of argument here, we're just going to talk about macro setup. So once you're in the program and you get your fully customized macro targets, I build them around, again, your TDEE and then the phase and the goal that you're in. So it's not just a template. It's not the same thing everyone's doing. They're your numbers and they change as you move through the phases because your body's changing. We got to change what we're doing based on the feedback that we get, which is why we do a weekly check-in with each other. Because now that we've been able to go through the week, I got to take a look at the data. And then I also get your perspective on how the week went. Because again, I can look at your workouts, your nutrition, all that. That's all just numbers. Okay. I want to get your perspective on the week. Because once I now get your perspective on the week, that's where I'll make the adjustments to your workouts, your nutrition. I'll build your weekly game plan. So that way we go through it. So that way, you know, this is what we did last week. Here's where we were successful. This is what I changed changed up. Here's the reason why it changed. And then here's the steps that we can take. So if we follow this step, this step, this step, this is the result we can expect to see, which now allows us to go and accomplish this. So that way my clients always know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it's never just because I said so. So that's why we do those weekly check-ins. And then that's where I'm doing those adjustments. Because now when the data suggests that we need to adjust, that's where we adjust. Not because the calendar tells us or 4 weeks gone by and I got to get a new workout. No, it's based on how your body works. So for an example, if we're in a phase with a certain client and every week they're getting progress, consistent results. And even though that time frame is starting to expire, I might extend it because again, if we're getting consistent results, I'm not going to fix what ain't broken. We're going to ride that wave out if we're seeing consistent progress. And then on the other side of the spectrum, if progress is slow, results aren't coming through, we start hitting a plateau, I'm not going to keep us in a phase longer just because it's on our calendar. I'm going to move us out so that way we can get consistent results. Again, that's why everything that we do is all based on the person, the results, and the feedback we get from the body. Okay. And then obviously accountability, because you have direct access to me. It's not a portal. It's not an automated check-in system. You're talking to me. Me and my clients talk every single day because when life happens, and it will, because let's be honest, the calms between the storms is just the little calms times before life throws a curveball at us. So we got to be ready for that, and which is why the communication is super, super important. So again, we solve those problems in real time. And this is what keeps people from quitting a couple weeks in and falling back into the same habits they've been stuck in for years. Some coaches will just be like, you're being lazy, you're not committed, whatever. No, it's sometimes maybe the plans aren't designed for each person and what goes on. They didn't have escape routes in case life got crazy. So that was never actually accounted for. So that was a coaching error, not a client error. And it's not professional to blame your clients for being lazy when the program wasn't built for their life or even had those exit plans for when life got busy. So that's why that's important. Then phase transitions, okay? So this is really, really important because we do not advance you into the next phase because the calendar said so, like we talked about. We advance you when the data says you're ready. So rushing this is one of the single most common mistakes I see other coaches make, and it causes a lot of clients to not see results. Your results depends on getting this right. If you're speeding it up, you're not doing it correctly, or your phases are out of order, you're running into the same wall every single time. So that's why we need to do it right. And then this is where the body composition comes in, because this is not something you get from a standard diet program and you get more muscle and less fat. The body you actually built was done the right way. And because we built it correctly, you're not going to lose it as soon as you fall back, because as we were going throughout the program, we developed good habits, good structures, good routines, and good exit strategies if life ever gets crazy. So that way, now when my clients are done the program never held them to standard. They rose to the standards of their lives that they need to do to order to become the versions of themselves. And that's how we develop standards. That's how we develop habits that last a lifetime. So if this sounds like you and you don't know where you're at in this and you want to start seeing results, then DM me the word sequence. I'll shoot you back a message personally, show you exactly where you're at in the process and what steps you got to take to start seeing progress. So go shoot me a message on Instagram and let's get into this.